All right, good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Do I need to use the mic? You can hear me in the back? Awesome. Thank you for coming. We're going to move really quickly through two different presentations here and talk about branding and marketing. I know that these afternoon presentations are always hard because we're fighting with the digesting carbohydrates from lunch, and then we're the only thing standing between you guys and a lot of fun tonight. But we've got some really cool content. I'm going to just get my clicker so that I can actually move around. I have my clicker. I can be a little more mobile than just at the mic. Feels like this mic is hot. Awesome. So my name is Josiah Brown. I'm known in the tourism industry as the New York Sherpa, which I'll explain how you get to be known as the New York Sherpa. But for the last 20 years, I've really been talking about branding. And it's a hilariously misunderstood field, so much so that I spoke at a big conference in Colorado, and there was two guys that came into my session, and they were like, "Man, we thought you were like talking about burning a mark in the ass of a horse." And I was like, "No. Different type of branding, but we're actually going to talk about that too." But 70% of what I do is running the New York's Best Experiences brand, which is a whole campaign we activate across the East Coast to introduce people to New York, because when you go and travel and you say you're from New York, what does everybody think? Without a question. So wherever I travel, I always talk about the New York that I love, and I've helped rebrand our state all over the country, that we have almost 50 mountains. There's 49, over 4,000 feet in the Adirondacks. We have world-class rafting. We have the third largest wine region in the country in the Finger Lakes. We have the home of the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, right? The Thousand Islands. You guys know this because we're from New York. We live it and we breathe it. We have castles that rise out of the mist, and we have epic event. Has anybody ever been to the Adirondack Balloon Festival? The first time they invited me, they said, "You have to get there at 4:30 in the morning because we're going to have a mass ascension." And I was like, a mass ascension feels like the most culty thing I've ever been invited to. But 100 balloons go up at dawn at Queensbury Airport, and that's amazing. Saratoga Raceway is the oldest sports venue in the nation. This is what they built, the new Yankee Stadium, inspired by that pavilion concept. When people ask me, is there anywhere good to eat in New York? I say, well, there's this little cafe called the Culinary Institute of America. You know, they're pretty good. But we have the densest population of historic sites anywhere in the country, in the Hudson Valley. Some of the top-rated beaches on Long Island. We hosted 2 Winter Olympics here in the state. And then, of course, the Maid of the Mist in Niagara Falls. Can you believe we're a misknown brand with that level of product? But this is where I live, in the Catskill Mountains of New York, but I travel about 50,000 miles a year across the state. So I run the New York's Best Experiences brand. I've been involved in state and national associations, but traveling almost 50,000 miles a year across New York State, my goal was to experience everything there was to do. In 18 years and 800,000 miles later, I got to be known as the New York Sherpa. As misknown as New York's brand is, there is a big chasm in the business world about branding and marketing. And I'm gonna kind of give you this idea, right? I believe, and I've seen it, that the misunderstanding of what these two words mean, branding and marketing, the misunderstanding of that costs small businesses billions of dollars a year, maybe trillions. Because in the corporate, the Fortune 500, the S&P 500, there is no misunderstanding of the difference of these words. And I'm really going to spend more time on branding. Erik, he'll introduce himself as well. He's going to spend more time on marketing. But you need to understand what these words mean, and that's what I'm going to stay at. It's about 30,000, 40,000 feet today. We have never, ever been in a noisier time. When I started in marketing, to go live, you needed a truck and a satellite dish and a cable about this big to just go live. Now my aunt can go live in the grocery store in front of the tomatoes, right? It's never been noisier. So to have people hear our message, we have to be very, very clear. The good news about that is that with all that noise, the clearer you are about your message, the quicker someone will hear it and they'll remember it because of the clarity that you're offering them. That's what we like to call branding. But what is a brand? 9 times out of 10, if you bring a company in to help you with a brand, they're immediately going to talk about your logo and the font you use. Hope everybody's okay.
There's a wrestling seminar next door.
Exactly. Your logo, your font, your colors. That's not what a brand is. That's a logo. The first reason that brand and marketing are so misunderstood is that people think a brand is a logo. The simplest way I can get this into your heart, which is where I want this lodged. You're not going to remember anything I say, but this is what I want you to remember, right? The one thing you're going to take away 2 months from now, 3 months from now, 10 years from now, is that a brand is an emotional reaction in the heart of a consumer. It's what they felt about the whole ecosystem they touched when they met you, saw you, tasted a product, visited you. A brand is an emotional reaction. And we constantly have these emotional reactions, and the holy grail is for somebody to describe you in one sentence when you're not in the room and describe you accurately. That's a powerful brand. Everywhere in the country, I've spoken all over the country, I can show the audience this symbol. As soon as you see this logo, you have a reaction. That reaction prompts usually one word. That's the top tier of our industry. What one word? Who wants to just pitch out a word that you would associate with this brand? Amazing. No matter where I am in America, I get that, right? How powerful is that you guys all knew that? What is this? It's a poorly drawn check mark, right? No, it's a swoosh, and it means just do it, right? This is where people say these people in branding and marketing, they're just kind of professional smoke blowers, you know? Brand, that's just your logo. Marketing is just advertising. You guys are in the professional business of blowing smoke. Here's the difference. Here's why that's not the case and sort of also the case. Can you run a marathon in these? Right? A pair of running sneakers? I couldn't run a marathon in these. But theoretically, I've done 2 marathons, both on Netflix. But you can run a marathon in these. You can actually also run a marathon in these. Right? The old boomer grilling sneakers Saturday night. Take off the old grass-covered ones and put on the gleaming white ones for barbecue and 6 o'clock Saturday night. You could run a marathon in these, technically. The front of the toe comes up. That's how you know you can run or walk in a shoe, is if the front toe comes up. But when you put someone in Nikes, what do they feel? How do they feel? What's Nike's brand? It's confidence. It's athleticism. It's performance. It's winning, right? That's what Nike built as a brand. And if you put someone in those sneakers and they feel that way, they will run faster. So my industry is not the industry of blowing smoke if they run faster. That's the idea. This is brown sugar water, right? Who wants to have some brown sugar water? What if I package it as enjoyment? That's their word, enjoyment. I'm going to talk about them in a little while because some of these brands go to a level of marketing a bad product, but they get into your psychology, and that's what I want to talk about. I want to teach you how to get into people's psychology, but for using your powers for good. So a brand is not a logo, but where did it come from? It came from here. Yes, there are flags and seals and king's crests and stuff, but the history of trademarking a logo came from the issue in the ranching industry where you were literally burning a logo into an animal to say, mine, don't steal it. Most people today are still sticking their logo on something to say it's mine. But what really mattered here is that they were putting those marks on animals to say, don't steal my stuff. But then, at 100 feet at an auction, there's 2 people sitting there, and they're responsible for buying a cow to bring back to their restaurant, and they go to the old timer next to them, who's better, Circle Y or Circle Z? And I could ask you, who's better, Circle Y or Circle Z? That's why a brand is not a logo, because you're looking at two logos and you don't know who's better. And the old timer says, well, Circle Y, oh man, one cow's good, marbled with fat, the other cow sucks. But Circle Z, it might only be an 85 out of 100, but it's an 85 out of 100 every time. And you go, great. Now Circle Z stands for something, and someone else described it to me. I never saw their marketing, I never saw anything about them, but somebody described it to me. That's their brand. Each of these marks, each of these logos just evoked something in you. And usually it's evoked from the last 3 to 4 experiences that you've had. And you can't fake this. Your brand will be what it is. We had a large company bring us in and say, we need to be better known for customer service. We need you to do that for us. And we went, but are you good at customer service? They're like, well, we are, but we're known horribly for it. Well, that doesn't work in our world. So we just recorded their customer service team for a week, brought it back to the owners, played it, one of the most awkward board meetings you will ever attend, played it, and they went, dear God, our customer service is awful. That's why you're known for bad customer service. You can't fake it. Volvo, as I mentioned before, I don't know if anybody saw this. In 2022, they put out a press release that no one will die in a Volvo from a model 2022 forward.
Whoa. It's a bold statement.
They put their entire brand on the line. You could probably Google and already disprove that, right? But how did they build an authenticity? Did you ever see a crash test dummy before Volvo put a crash test dummy in their ads? Right? They innovated the side curtain airbag system. They innovated the 3-point harness and then didn't patent it so that every car could put the 3-point harness in. Right? They stood behind that reputation. J.D. Powers will rate every car about as safe as every other car in their class of automobile, whoever the hell J.D. Powers is. They keep telling me at the end of car commercials, J.D. Power rates us. Who's J.D. Powers? Right? You ever thought about that as far as branding? But anyway, they tell us that vehicles are safe, and I guess we believe them. But in their class of car, everybody's about as safe as everybody else now. But they're safe because of the innovations that Volvo innovated. So we work with brands to help build this culture and build this following and build this idea. Any consultant should show you a Venn diagram. If I don't show you a Venn diagram, I haven't done my job. But we're trying to figure out who you are and what makes you unique and what your story is and what emotions you want to evoke. And then sometimes we have to find what the gap is. Like, well, we also want to be known for this. Well, what are you doing to cultivate that? You can't just tell people something. You have to build a culture around it. But the genius here is that once you've built a culture around it, a lot of your advertising is only going back to reinforce what people already believe about your brand. So you can actually save a lot of money. Growing up, you remember Abercrombie and Fitch? Massive brand, never advertised. Starbucks in the early years, massive brand, never advertised. Tesla right now, not advertising. But when they then do, it's more valuable because their advertising is just reinforcing what people already feel. The entrance point into their brand is all word of mouth. Other people telling their story for them. We look at two main things. What your why is, that's kind of become trendy to ask people, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? And then we look at how your symbols of trust line up with those things. Almost everyone can tell me what they do. People get obsessed with telling you how they do what they do. But I want to know the foundational reasons of why you do what you do. What drives you? What drives your quality? What drives your story? What gets you out of bed in the morning? Because that is also what gets somebody else out of bed in the morning. And when we match those two, they're a customer on a level that doesn't even make sense. Even Samsung is mocking this in ads now. How they have ads talking about how they have all the features that iPhone users have before iPhones have them, but that iPhone users won't give up their iPhone. And they're doing these ads mocking it, but it only reinforces why I like Apple. Because it's an ecosystem I've built myself into. For right or wrong, I'm stuck in that ecosystem and I like it. So Samsung was like mocking Apple, but it only reinforces an Apple person. And what you're going after is trust. If they're going to trust what you say, you have to have this holistic ecosystem that speaks to that. So I'll give you an example of how this would change if you talk about what and how you're doing. If I said, I own a car company, we make great cars in a wide variety of vehicles, and they have great miles per gallon, and they're safe, and there's family versions and commuter versions. Would you like to buy one? Just feels like I need more information, right? I haven't comparatively shopped. But if I came to you and said, we believe that Americans want to drive cars that were conceived by, engineered by, built by, and delivered by Americans that hold themselves true to the idea that if it's not good enough for my family, it's not good enough for yours. Want to buy one? For a certain set of the population, because you're never going for 100%, they just go, whoa, that's what I believe. But there's also somebody on that list who says, no, I'd rather a vehicle Japanese engineered, right? You're immediately sorting out the people who believed with that statement and didn't believe that statement. So here's the tricky part, is that the brand is always about them. We don't own a brand. It's the most frustrating and the biggest liberating part of this. You don't own your brand. It's owned in the heart of a consumer. Your job is to clearly communicate well enough so that they start to believe what you believe, and that you can select them based on a similarity in your culture. So the ing, branding. What's the ing? That's the second word people misunderstand. They believe a brand is a logo. Brand is not a logo. It's an emotional reaction. The ing, branding, is marketing. Marketing is not advertising. Marketing is the holistic process you go through to deliver that reaction. Erik's going to talk a lot about how the importance of planning in that matters. So marketing is not advertising. We don't own our brand. It's about them. So I'll talk about 3 tiers. 3 tiers of branding. It's tier 1. Most branding companies are going to come in and tell you, you got to use your logo the same every time. Don't let it be pixelated. Don't stretch it. Guard it when it's on a sponsorship, or guard it when it's on your collateral. Properly put it on your website. And always use the same font. And always use your brand color. And that's good advice. It's tier 1. Coca-Cola owns that red. Home Depot owns their orange. John Deere owns their green. Why? Because every second, your senses are picking up 50,000 data points. Every second, your brain is receiving 50,000 data points. And it has to sort what it tells you about, essentially. You ever bought a vehicle, the red Chevy? I think I have a slide of a red Chevy. You buy a red Chevy, and then the next day, everyone in town has a red Chevy. Well, they were always there. Your brain just didn't tell you about them. So what happens is, when you're trying to communicate to the public, it is important to use your logo and your colors and the fonts the same way, because every time you touch someone, rarely are you actually making it to their conscious mind. You're making it to their subconscious mind. They might actually take notice of you on the 15th time after the friend of theirs has said your name. But you've already had 15 hits, and your brain knows that. So the more consistently you've hit them, by the time they see it, and it brings it up to your brain, you trust it more because you saw it consistently. That's why this stuff matters. It gets into deep psychology. That's why Fortune 500, they own their fonts, they own their colors, they own their logos. You don't have to go to that level, but tier 1's important. Tier 2 is what we call the clever level. The clever level is if we want to sell brown sugar water or brown high fructose corn syrup water to the public, we have to make it something other than brown sugar water. We have to make an enjoyment. And so now we have to study our customers and find out, when are they at their highest levels of enjoyment? Well, they're on their highest levels of enjoyment on the beach and at Christmas. Ever notice how Coca-Cola normally markets to you with beach scenes and Christmas scenes? Statistically, the highest level of enjoyment in your brain, and they're marrying that. This is the level we stop at. Get your stuff well designed, and then use it consistently and know your customer. This next level will ruin a lot of things for you. Christmas, politics. Tier 3 is what we call creepy level. This is all psychology. So 100 years ago, Coca-Cola paid Currier and Ives illustrators to draw Santa not in his buckskin coat, but a red coat. But not in any red, in Coca-Cola red. They got into Santa, right? Then they made him hold a bottle of Coke. And it was kind of known that it was Coca-Cola red up until kind of Miracle on 34th Street. People started to associate Santa's coat with Macy's. It was actually Coca-Cola inserting their red into the culture through the times of illustrators. That's a level, when you get down into this level and you realize how politicians measure words, sample words, test images, test phrases, how all of these brands work, right? They're selling brown sugar water, but they got into Santa, right? That's a creepy level of this stuff. It's all psychology, and I live in this world because I want to use these powers for good. I don't want to use them for evil. But you know, this is what I talked about with the two brains. You have your subconscious brain and your conscious brain. You are always delivering to people's subconscious brain things. It's the red Chevy, got ahead of myself. It's the red Chevy example. You're delivering who you are to their subconscious, and when it comes up to their conscience, that's how they'll talk about you, that's how they'll share you, that's what they'll believe in you. But remember, there's the literal part of the brain and the non-literal, right? There's the language and the non-language part. So in the language and the math part of their brain, they can say better product, tastes good, good food, easy to get to. But in the other part of your brain where trust and love and fear live, right? Tell me on paper why your best friend is your best friend. Can't do it, right? Why is Jerry your best friend? I don't know. He's a good guy. He's not a good guy. He's an asshole. But he's my best friend. You can't describe it, right? You can't put it on paper. That's the part of your brain that good brands sit in. Trust, love, hope, fear. It then has to be backed up by evidence on the literal side of your brain. Good service, good food, good story, good culture. They do things for me. So you're working on both sides of the brain. This is how much design matters, right? This is a sign for a dentist. Maybe $2,500 sign. It looks a little sterile, a little cold. Does it work? Sure. This is a 25-cent sign. Does that work? Sure. What happens if they spend $2,500? Doesn't work as well, does it? And never copy someone's brand, whatever you do. It's how you craft a feeling. Something for everyone is terrible marketing. Never say it, never do it. Take it out of your campaigns. Something for everyone is terrible marketing, and I'll show you why. I'm a camper. This is how campgrounds market, right? They all pretty much have the same stuff. So which one do you go to? Something for everyone is terrible marketing. How about this? These are now 4 distinct camping experiences. Which flavor are you, right? Decide it, own it, run with it. The narrower your focus, the broader your appeal. What you're going for is to script an emotional reaction, and those more powerful emotional reactions are from the more narrow you get. When Starbucks started, they didn't offer 30 drinks and sugary drinks. They offered this quirky European noisy coffee thing. Espresso lattes, what? And there was a 300-person line out in front of every store to get one bitter, expensive cup of coffee. And Dunkin' Donuts is like, what is going on? But it was because they said, we're so narrow, we're only for the coffee aficionados. And it's this loud, weird process with ridiculously friendly baristas, right? They built a whole culture around it. Then they said, we have to keep growing for Wall Street. And then they started adding snacks and food and sugary snacks and drinks and day drinks and night drinks and frappuccinos, and right? They started to wreck their brand because of needing to grow. So know what differentiates you and be authentic. This killed me, right? Remember when George Washington was driving Dodges in cars? They had that whole campaign. Culture guides us more than you think it does. Every decision you make every day is built off of the culture that you were brought up through. These two brands, right? America, like a rock. Well, now here's a problem. The internet's come along. Chevy and Ford have built most of their brand on being American. I own a Ford and a Chevy, just to qualify. But I understand what's going on here. They have a list. You can look at the mash bill on these trucks. And now they have a list of the most American trucks. Most American means American labor, American parts, and American assembly. Do you want to know what the most American truck is?
Toyota.
In 2022 is the Honda Ridgeline. And I apologize ahead of time for anyone in the audience who owns a Honda Ridgeline. Holy crap. This is the most American truck. The I tuck my t-shirt into my jeans truck. Right? The I let my wife pick out my truck this year truck. The I'm 4'9" and proud truck. Sorry. Ford and Chevy guy. This by the mash bill is the most American truck. The Chevy Silverado is 93rd. Parts in Canada, assembly in Mexico. Right? But that's not what the branding would lead you to believe. George Washington's driving these things. So be authentic. Build a culture intentionally. Be authentic intentionally. Don't have something for everyone. Be unique and tell the world you're unique. And start a lot of your phrases with the phrase, we believe. Because there's this weird cultural thing. When you start a phrase with we believe, everybody quiets down and they listen. Because they're about to agree with you or not agree with you. And if they agree, you're in their tribe. And if they don't agree, you're not in their tribe. And that's actually a beautiful thing. Because clarity cuts through that noise. I'm going to give you, we redid Discover Allegheny County. Allegheny is one of the western New York counties, and they had a brand problem. And we went in there and helped them rebrand. And I just want to show you their launch video. Because this was an 18-month process to help give a destination a new name, which is a very difficult process. And we did what we kind of call a brand anthem video. I want you to see if you can feel something from this work. That's the idea. Western New York wilds live deliberately. I'm on Instagram at New York Sherpa. If you ever have any questions or you just want to riff about brand, happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that up because that was pretty exciting and a lot there. Welcome, everybody. My name is Erik Budrakey. I know a lot of you in the room, and I don't know many of you, or a lot of you as well. So I look forward to meeting some of you and working with those of you that I do know. I own a company called Brew America. It started out as a local craft magazine called True Brew Magazine. Some of you may have seen it. And we specifically work with breweries in planning, and small distilleries in understanding what marketing and strategy is and helping you to develop a business plan that's going to help your business get to where it wants to go. So he talked about branding and what is a brand. I'm really going to bore you with what is marketing and what is strategy. So let's work on that. That's me. So what is a marketing plan? We're going to talk a difference between what is a strategy and what is a plan. But a plan essentially is your roadmap for success. I could say to you, hey, right now we're going to jump in the car, we're going to go to California. Come on, everybody, we're going. No map, no GPS. We're just going to get in the car and drive south and west until we end up in California, right? We can do that. Next thing you know, you've missed your left turn at Albuquerque and you're in Mexico. So it's going to be a roadmap of where are we going, what's your strategy, and what's the plan? How are we going to get there? And in the plan contains the strategies, the tactics, the activities that you're going to do to get to where you're going. Like I said, we can get in the car and just drive, but what if I said, okay, let's put out a map. On day one, we're going to drive to Buffalo, we're going to stay at this hotel and maybe have dinner at this brew pub, and it's probably going to cost us this much. On day two, we're going to do this. So, we're drawing a map on where we want to go. So now that you kind of are getting into your head, what is my brand? How do we market that brand? And once we decide how we're going to market it, we follow the roadmap, and it's going to walk us to the water. Most importantly in building your plan are, what are the costs and what are the expected results? So what's the difference between a strategy and a tactic? I got ahead of myself. The strategy is, where are we going for my business? Let's say we're going to look at our 2024 business plan, which we should start this October. How much did I sell of each product last year, and how much more do I want to sell? Next year, we want to be up 20%. How are we going to do it? We can get in the car and just start driving, or we can make a plan. And if you make your plan, you'll find your execution gets much, much stronger. So your strategy is the overarching, where are we going? The tactics are how are we going to get there? So the four purposes of a marketing plan, it coordinates your company's goals. And whether you're just producing beer to sell in your tap room, or you have a tap room that has a restaurant, or you have distribution, your plan should be based on, who do I want to be when I grow up? Do I want to be FX Matt, where I have national distribution and I'm in every grocery store and most C-stores and on tap in a lot of places? Am I just a regional player who wants my beer just in New York State? Or maybe I'm just a little local tap room that wants to service my community much like a bakery does, right? So who you want to be as a brewery and how you set your expectations for where you want to go is going to determine what your plan says, and this is also going to define your market. So for example, in the 11 counties of Capital Region here, 50% of the beer that's sold outside of your tap rooms is sold in the chains. New York State, there's 5 channels to sell beer. We know them: grocery channel, convenience chain, independent groceries, on-premise, and beverage centers. So what's your plan to attack each one of those segments? And maybe in year one you're saying, hey, we're just going to go to the beverage centers and help our brand get building, or just go on tap in 10 local restaurants. But if you have that plan, you now know what good looks like and how to hold yourself accountable. It also defines your marketing mix. We'll talk later about how your marketing mix should look, and it systemizes it. So basically you built the map, you drew it, and your whole team just has to follow the play. We doing good so far? I'm going a little fast because I know we're short on time. So why do breweries need a marketing plan? There's a brewery that opened locally recently, about 6 months ago, and I went in and I said, how's it going? And he's like, it's going great, man. And I said, well, what's great? How are you defining what great is? I'm paying my bills? I said, well, how's it going versus plan? How's your business going versus where you thought you'd be today? And he goes, Erik, my business plan is to not go broke. That's his plan. So your plan is to not go broke. I don't know, that's like going to the ocean and saying, my plan is to not drown. Instead of planning your vacation and having a good time. It's not a good plan. And it got me thinking, and actually I had this conversation with Paul Leone and Chloe, and they were like, we should talk about this in a breakout seminar, so I'm glad that you guys are here. A marketing plan helps you create measurable goals. Too many in the brewing industry, and this goes for small business in general, but especially I see it in the brewing industry, are ready, fire, aim. What are we shooting at? What are we shooting at? I said to one brewery, he's like, Erik, I'm planning today what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm like, that's a dangerous way to run a business. I don't care what your business is. Ready, aim. Marketing planning is aiming. It's the aim. And it's amazing how if you don't just fire off shots, you focus on your target, how am I going to hit it? By the time you pull the trigger, you've got a very good chance of actually hitting your target. But if you don't have a plan, what are you shooting at? Have a plan. I'm going to be drilling that home today. A plan provides consistency. Essentially, now you know what your targets are, and I'll encourage you to share with your teams as you're building the marketing process out and your plan out. Get your team's input, because their input is going to lead to them having an understanding of your company's objectives, and they're going to be on board with executing your plan consistently. So you don't have one guy doing it in one way and another girl doing it another way. It pushes you to stick with your budget. I asked the brewer the other day, I said, hey, for every pint of beer that comes through your tap, how many nickels or dimes or quarters are you putting into your marketing budget? And he said, what? I'm like, yeah. How much out of every keg you sell or barrel, however you're measuring your business, how much are you investing back into your company to build your brand? And it's amazing if you think of it that way, you take a small percentage and you put it into this bucket, the bucket grows and your marketing gets much stronger. So having the plan is going to say, well, we can't do that because one, it's either not part of the plan or it's not in the budget, but have a budget. Come on now. It allows you to have better customer service. Believe it or not, this is true. I need a drink. Cotton mouthing up here. It's New York. What do you want from me? It does, by having a plan and sharing it with your team, now your staff that's pulling sticks behind the bar or delivering out at retail or making sales calls on retailers, they're all on the same page. And that allows for you to give better customer service because you're giving consistent customer service the same way every time. So getting your team involved with creating the plan is a really good, secure way to get them to follow it. Gives your company the reality check that you need. How are you doing? We're doing great. How are you doing versus plan? I was a marketing manager for Sierra Nevada for New York for a number of years, and one time the local rep came into the market and was like, Erik, we're kicking ass, man. We're up 12%. I said, it's good. We're up 12%. The industry standard at that time was, the industry was up 10, so we're 2 up over the industry standard. But I stopped him. I said, well, our plan is to be up 18%. So you think you're kicking ass because we're up 12%. I'm thinking we're 6 points off plan. What are we going to do to fix this? So the plan allows us to check in with how we're really doing versus the expectations that we set for ourselves. Make sense? A marketing plan is an excellent motivator to your team. If your marketing team understands what the company's goals are, and they take part in helping build those goals, while you're off brewing beer focusing on what you should do, they're executing your plan strongly. And I say to all my brewer friends, know what you're good at. Most of you is probably definitely brewing beer, but definitely recognize what you're not good at and surround yourself by experts. I could Google how to cut my own hair. No thanks, I'll make a mess of it. I'm going to go to a barber, he's an expert. I could look at how to change my transmission in my truck. You don't want me under there with a wrench, I'll screw it all up. So know what you're good at and surround yourself by experts, and that includes especially with marketing. If your skill set is brewing, focus on your brewing, get your plan down at the beginning of the year, and then your team runs the play. And you're checking in with them, how are we doing? Having a plan is a good way to get new investors. Let's face it, as brewers, if we're going to grow our business, chances are we're going to need investors, unless we have very rich friends. And when you can go to an investor and say, hey, I brew good beer, you know, hey, I make a mean cake, awesome tray of brownies. Does that mean I should open a bakery? Do I know the nuances of marketing and building a brand in the bakery world? Buying flour in bulk, the type of insurance I might need if somebody burns himself on the donuts. So having a plan where you can say, hey, here's where we are now, this is where we want to go, this is how we're going to get there, this is how much of an investment we need, you're going to have a lot better chance than if you just, you know. A plan will help you think and be proactive versus reactive. I was a VP for a brewery for a number of years, and I had 3 dry erase boards up in our office. This month, next month, and the following month. January, February, and March. And I could sit back from the whole thing, and I had our staff put together, I want to know everything we did last January. What were the trivia nights? When did we have live music? What new brand releases we have? Did we have any product innovations? And put it all up on the calendar so we know we're doing St. Patrick's Day every year. So put St. Patrick's Day, but then I put a flag in January, 6 weeks out, saying St. Patrick's Day parties in 6 weeks. We need to get the corned beef ordered. We need to get the signage done. We need to get our social media campaigns. It's one thing to throw the party, but at 5 weeks out, we want to blast this on social media. At 4 weeks out, we're going to do this. So having a plan allows you to run the play. It's like a football team, right? They practice 5 times a week to play 1 3-hour game. Why is that? So when it comes to game time, they're just running the play. And if you have to call an audible, sometimes your forecast is going to be sunny and it rains. You can call an audible, but you have a measuring stick for what good looks like. We making sense? All right. No one's sleeping yet, right? Good. So here's 5 simple, effective planning stages that are important. And a lot of this stuff, like I said, I'm going fast. I'll be hanging out afterwards. If you want to come and chat about it, we can. We all know Ben Franklin was beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. Well, he also said, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And that's true. That's absolutely true. But to get ready, you're going to want to prepare all your documents. For me, it's always 3 months in front of where we are today. Right now, today, it's July 1st, if I'm planning my marketing and strategy. So I encourage all of you to use Q4, October, November, December, to write your 2024 business plan. And you're going to need to gather a lot of information. What beers did we make? How much did we sell? How many barrels of this one? How many barrels of that one? And so on. What was our cost? You got to plug all that into your spreadsheet. And then what tactics were we using? You also need to know about what are the changes in the market, other things that might be coming in that could be potentially a threat to you. Did you know, for example, last year a new brewery opened up at a rate of 1 every 2 weeks in New York State? 1 every 2 weeks. So if you have a business plan and another brewery's opened up within 5 miles of you, is your plan change a little bit? You know, at least you have something you can reference and go back and tweak. Get together all your sales documents, everything that you did in 2023, so then you can write in month to month where you want to grow your business and how you're going to do it. Write in your January of 24 versus January of 23 and how much growth you're going to have. It's going to spit out a quarterly number, a 6-month number, and an annual number. So get your documents ready. This is very important. SWOT. We all know what SWOT means, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Write down what your strengths are. Bring your staff in. What are our strengths? We make good beer. Pretty much every brewery's strength, or at least on their list. But what are their opportunities? Maybe we make good beer, but we're having some consistency issues. That becomes a problem. Sometimes our strength can create an opportunity. What are our weaknesses? And get your feedback from your team. And when you put it all out, you can start to realize, you know what? These are where we can button up our efficiencies to run a better operation, make better beer, and be more clear-minded. So swatting your annual business. And sometimes it's not just swatting your overall business. It might be, I'm going to swat an event, right? We just hosted a big St. Patrick's Day party with food trucks and live music and so on. The week after the event, sit your staff down and say, hey, let's go around the table. And you'll find opportunities. It's actually fun. Do it over a beer. List down your marketing plan objectives. And this is one of the more important parts of making a plan. I got a consultant call for a brewery who asked me to come and look at over their shoulder at their plan. And I looked at it and said, man, you're expecting to cut the ribbon and you're going to have a line out the door every day. You're going to be sold out and it's going to be sunny and 80 with birds in the sky. You're not forecasting for rain. It's not that, and what's happening is you're going to wake up every day feeling disappointed. And it's not because you're not doing a good job. It's because your plan's unrealistic. Specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic. Those are the 2 important ones. If you start making plans, we're going to get to California in a day. No, you're not. Unless you fly. Not on the route we were talking about driving. And then time specific. These gives you and your team accountabilities to keep yourself in check. Set a marketing budget. So this is what you back into. You can't say, well, next year our marketing budget's going to be 10 grand. Let's see what we can do with it. Next year, based on all this planning that we just talked about doing, it's going to spit out what our goal is. You shouldn't write a plan saying, hey, how do we become up 10% next year? It's wiser to say, okay, how much of this did we do? How much of this, how much can we grow? What new innovations in packaging are we adding? Maybe we're getting into a new market and we're starting to distribute. Then the numbers roll out and say, oh shit, I got us up 12% for the year. And I recommend a cents per case if you're out in the market, 50 cents a case, for example, or a cents per barrel if you're in your own house. But working with a distributor, you might sit down with them, do the business plan, and at all said and done, we're going to sell 20,000 CEs, case equivalents, next year. We'll put 50 cents a case into the bucket. Distributor will put 50 cents a case into the bucket. Now we know we have $20,000 marketing budget to accomplish what we need to accomplish. But building the budget is very, very important. And there's a general rule of thumb, and no one likes to hear it. Build your budget and then add 25%. Because the 25% column is what you didn't see coming. And you know it's out there. We can plan for everything we know. We can't plan for what we don't see coming. And thank God forbid at the end of the year there's leftover money there. You planned accordingly, that goes into next year's budget. And then create an executive business summary. And this is for you. This is for you as an owner, okay? Based on all this planning and strategy that we did, we now understand where we're going, how we're going to get there, and what the expectations are. Draw that out for yourself in a summary, because you'll use it to hold yourself accountable. So I'm just going to go through this quick. We know most of this. Content marketing, what are the types of marketing? For brewery specifically, content marketing is a very strong form of marketing. And what is content marketing? Instead of Brewery Omegang placing an ad where you click on the Omegang ad, you're on Omegang's website, reading Omegang's description about how awesome Omegang is, you put it in a story. We'll write a story. Capital Region residents excited about new Omegang beer release. And within the story, it'll highlight the brand, when it's coming out, where you can find it, some attributes. It's a fun read. And within the story, there's links that you can learn more. But the cool thing is, you can control the audience. We're going to serve this out just over the 4 core counties of the Capital Region, only to people 21 to 65, and only to people that have an affliction for craft beer, IPAs, Omegang. Plug in the keywords, right? Excuse me. Yeah, cotton mouth. Weird, I know. Where was I with that? So the other thing with this is like you get to see your return on investment. At Brown's, I bought a billboard on the side of 787. It cost me $6,000, and I advertised our tap rooms and a concert series that we were doing. Now, for $6,000, I don't know if somebody saw that and stopped on Price Chopper that week and picked up one of my 6-packs, or came into one of our 2 tap rooms to enjoy a meal with their family, or actually came to the concert. I just know based on $6,000 and traffic data that I'm going to get blankety blank amount of eyeballs. And how many of those eyeballs are a 15-year-old kid in the back seat who can't drink, playing video games, or a 70-year-old man who doesn't drink or prefers spirits? Here, we can put that billboard only in front of your target audience, and you get a scorecard where you can see how many people looked at it, how long, how they interacted, where they clicked through. So content marketing is very effective for brand awareness campaigns. Media marketing, this is your traditional media, but believe it or not, still very powerful. If you got a local beer magazine, if you got somewhere that talks directly to that audience, television and radio still come into play. And the cool thing with television now, you can do the same thing that I just mentioned with content marketing on Hulu. So you could be looking at Hulu, and you could be looking at Hulu, and your house is right next to each other, watching the same program, and you're getting different commercials than she is because of the algorithms that you display. And then, of course, there's social media. Now, my company, I have a budget of $28 a month for social media. Now, I'm not a big brewery, I'm a small little company, but I put 4 relevant posts up a week, and I'll put a $7 boost behind one of them to keep my brand relevant by creating a calendar for what posts you're going to have, and then you're executing against that. Your marketing strategy should be part of your overall plan. You back into the strategies based on what the plan calls for. Any closing remarks? I mean, the one takeaway that I have is somebody who's been in 25 years of marketing in the craft beer world is aim. Aim. Look at your target, understand where you want to go and how you're going to get there. Focus, and you know what? You're going to have a good chance of hitting your target. So I'm Erik Budrakey. I want to thank everybody for your time. We'll be here. Does anybody have any questions, or is there anything that you'd like to ask of us? Yeah, go get that beer. We'll be up here. Oh, yes, sir.
Well, as a newer brewery, we opened in December, so we're getting a lot of these advertising requests from, different. They all sound great, right? And they're all like first-time opportunities for us. But how do you kind of budget when it feels like the requests are coming from all?
Well, if when you do a plan, and I understand you're new, so you don't have anything to go up against, but as you're going into next year's planning, the plan itself for what you guys need to accomplish should dictate your tactics. And then the tactics, you got to look at the budget that you have in place and make sure that the return on investment is going to be there. These are some of the tough things about planning and marketing. Is like, where do I go? And that's where I say, know what you're good at. I'm a brewer. I don't know marketing, and work with somebody who understands that. And you can call me.
Well, I know that.
Yeah, in like similarly though, like the charity requests that
Yeah.
we get, it's like, I don't know, 4 a week. And it's like, we only can spend so much money on it or spend so much time at it as a small staff. And like, I kind of look at it now like, what are the target demographics of that charity? Are those people that I'm gonna drive to my tap room because that's my business?
Mhm.
If not, full stop, sorry, we don't know.
Yeah, well, and you just said it right there, especially when it comes to charity. People are like, oh, you just donated a keg of beer. Like, no, I'm not donating just a keg of beer. I'm donating the time that it took to brew it, the time that it took to keg it, for you guys to handle all the paperwork, and a lot of times you're asking me to have my staff there to pour it.
Yeah.
So that is an effective form of marketing, but it's an expensive one. And if you're going to trade shows and you're going to brew festivals and you plan on participating on those things in 2024, that has to be written into your plan. And if you have it written into your plan, then you're following the roadmap. So you guys are in your first year. I mean, it's certainly, there's a lot of balls in the air and you're trying to figure things out as you go. My recommendation is set a budget for yourself. We're only doing blank amount of charity events a year. Weigh and measure whether it's worth it. And sometimes you just have to say no when it comes to charity, because that's giving away product.
You talked a little bit about, setting up a social media calendar in which you've got 4 posts, and then
Sure.
you're setting aside 1 post a week to boost.
Yeah.
The metrics that we've kind of driven into of these boosts is that you're boosting, but you're not boosting to anything more than what essentially, you're way too broad a stroke. Where, they're gonna boost your stuff to men age 24 to 40. And you're just kind of scattershotting $7 out there. Have you seen a realistic return?
Yeah, well, for Facebook, for example,
Yeah.
if I do a targeted post on Facebook, not only can I control the audience, I can also control the area that I serve it. So I can say, here's my ad. I have Facebook boosts for, like, I'm in my company's in Denver, San Antonio, Boston here. I have an audience built for Boston. I have an audience built for the capital region. And in those, I define the attributes of my target customer that I want to have. Craft beer, food trucks, whatever it might be. When I did a program for the New York State Brewers Association, that also included food trucks and live music. So when you're building your boost, don't just put $7 and go. Go down deeper, build your audience, and once you build it for your brewery, you now have that. You can use it on multiple campaigns. Funny thing is, the one that I usually post is like a joke. It's like Homer Simpson flexing with a beer muscle, and that gets 700 likes. But I do that because I go back into the post, and anybody who doesn't like my page, invite. So there's a strategy, 1, towards getting your message and brand out there, and 2, getting more people to like your page. Good question.
That's what Eric just said about inviting people to like your page is like an awesome hack. It really goes a long way with your boost. You're not getting the most value out of your money if you're not going back there and inviting those people to follow.
Is Business Suite starting to is technology getting to the point where it's learning your demographic, who you should be targeting, or is that like a paid for service? Because my understanding was it's starting to learn, like you can teach it.
Yeah, the technology right now is moving faster than I or we can keep up with it. And that's why I say, if you're not a marketing person, if you're really focused on brewing, work with a marketing person, because you spend so much time doing homework and research when you probably have somebody that you can tap to do it. And I'm a resource for every brewery in the state. I'm a phone call. So I'll give you my card on the way out of here. I'm a phone call. It costs nothing to make a phone call and say, hey, you got any suggestions here? Can I pick your brain? I'm a big believer of what's good for the umbrella that covers the craft brewery scene in New York State is good for all the breweries underneath it. And the more we work together and promote that umbrella, the better we're all going to be. So please, I ask of you, if you have any questions, if there's anything that we can do for you, I'm a phone call away. And I get great pleasure in helping breweries kind of find their footing. It's better than a paycheck, although getting paid is kind of good too. So I know a lot of you guys have other things to do, and it's happy hour and you want to get out of here. We'll hang out if you want to come up and ask some questions. Otherwise, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.